Now you've seen how to implement authentication when using full stack application as you see on the screen. And this is what we have built so far. But what about if we are building APIs without user interface? How are we going to implement cookie-based authentication? So let me show you how we are going to implement that. So back to the application. We are going to refactor this to use API. So for this, I'm going to duplicate. Supposed to be the entire folder here. And I'm going to change this one to concept number 12 as cookies auth with API only, or let me say with API. And let me change this one to concept number 12. So let's go ahead and refactor this. For this, we don't need the views folder. So I'm going to remove that. That's the first step. The second step is that let's get into the server.js file. And over here, let's start from here. We need these configurations. But for this, we don't need the URL encoded because we are not going to use the browser. But instead, we are going to use what is called .json because we want to pass the JSON data from the client, and that is using Postman or the Tender client or to use Insomnia. And I don't need the views configuration. I need the cookie parser. This one is going to pass the cookie from the Postman or any client that you're going to use. And we need these users as a way of logging in. And for home route, we don't need to use render, but instead we are going to use JSON. Remember, for APIs, we need to return JSON data. So inside as an object, and I will say message, and I'm going to use welcome to homepage, or let me say welcome to the API. And for logging in, let's see the flow. We don't need this one to render the form. And we need all this implementation. But when a user is logged in, we don't want to render the dashboard. But instead, we are going to send some JSON data as res.json and provide a message, and I will say login success, navigate to dashboard, or just login success. And else, I think I need to bring else here. I forgot to do that. I will say else, and I'll provide res.json, and I will say message login failed or invalid credentials. And for the dashboard, we need all this logic, but where we are returning the template, we are going to use res.json. So as res.json, and we are going to say that message, and I'm going to use backtick here, and I will say welcome, and I'm going to provide the username as welcome username. And then I want to provide the row. So I will say row is, I'm going to use user data dot row. Else we will say unauthorized, please log in first. And that is it. And for logging out, we want it as it is. But for the redirect here, we are going to use res.json and provide message. And I will say logged out successfully. For this, I'm going to use Postman. And we have already explained how to use this. I'm going to create a collection. I'm going to duplicate this. And I will say rename here as authentication. And the endpoint here, let me grab this one to avoid typing it manually. The endpoint is 3001. And the home page, if I click on send, cannot find. So what is wrong? Let me try again. Cannot find the module. Let me rearrange it well. Well, sorry, I need to start the server. So here, let me clear it and let me cd in as this. And now let me run the application and let's try again. And now welcome to the API. If I try to access the dashboard, I haven't logged in. Now let's see the message. Unauthorized. Please log in. So how are we going to log in? Let's go ahead. Let me have this as home. And let me create one for dashboard. And here is going to be /dashboard and one for login, and it's going to be post method /login. So I'm going to provide the payload. So click on body, none, raw, under text, select JSON. For this, we have done it before. I'm going to provide username, and the value for this, I'm going to use John's username as John. And then the password is 123 and login. All right, login success. Now, when a user is logged in, the server has generated a cookie data and assigned to this user. So how are we going to access the cookie data? Automatically, it's going to be saved inside the headers. So click on the headers. And then here we have 10 hidden items. So click on the icon here and let's scroll down and let's scroll up instead. As you can see, we have cookie. And this is the value that has been saved inside our client, in this case, Postman. So now, if I try to access the dashboard, it's going to make a request and send this cookie along. And then inside the server is going to use cookie parser to parse this data. So now, if I go ahead, let me click on body here. And if I access the dashboard, let's try and see. As you can see, welcome John. Your role is admin. If I go ahead and log out, I'm going to remove the cookie from the header. Now I'm going to make use of logout. Now let's try. As you can see, the number of cookies item that has been saved has now reduced to 7. If I click on that, as you can see, we have removed that cookie. And if I try to access the dashboard, now let's see. Unauthorized, please log in. This is how we implement cookie-based authentication when building only APIs.